Thank you so much, sir. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. JB and the All India Ophthalmic Society for this invitation. So when we talk about intermediate uveitis, we are looking at inflammation of the ciliary body, vitreous, and the peripheral retina with a known etiology. We call it pars planitis when the etiology is unknown. Now, the characteristic feature for an intermediate uveitis is the presence of the snowballs and snow banking. In addition, you also see other clinical features like cystoid macular edema, neovascularization, multiple scars, and peripheral retinal vasculitis. Investigations are very useful, especially fluorescein angiography and OCT for monitoring these patients while on therapy. Now, these are the different causes of intermediate uveitis, both infectious and non-infectious. And we have come a long way from posterior subtenon injections to intravitreal implants, and from oral steroids and immunosuppressants to biologics in managing many of these cases with intermediate uveitis. So in the next few minutes, I will be discussing few cases which have posed a diagnostic and therapeutic challenge. So my first case is a 32-year-old male with a right eye pars planitis since 3 years on and off on oral steroids. And when he presented to me, he had a vision of 660. So he was referred to me for systemic immune suppression. And when we saw his eye, he has this typical snow banking, snowballs, but he also had these chorioretinal scars. So we investigated him before immune suppression, and we found that his MANTO was strongly positive. He had mediastinal lymphadenopathy, and when we did a TBNA, he had caseation. So this was a tubercular intermediate uveitis, and we treated him with anti-tubercular therapy, and his vision is 6.6 at 2 years follow-up. Now, contrary to what we have been taught that snow banking never occurs in tubercular uveitis, this is quite opposite. So we did see snow banking in a patient with tubercular intermediate uveitis. Now, our second case is a 23-year-old intern who came to us with floaters, 2 months history, vision very good 6.6. Labs were otherwise negative except for a positive MAN2. Now, during our course of observation, he developed one single granulomatous KP and an increase in vitritis. So we started him on oral steroids and anti-tubercular therapy. But each time we tapered the steroids, he kept getting reactivations, and now he started developing retinal vasculitis as well. So we did an MRI because I thought his disc was slightly blurred nasal margins. So it showed enhancement of optic nerves, and he underwent a CSF examination, which was totally not contributory. So this was his fluorescein angiography, which showed leakages in both eyes, both at the optic nerve head and the vessels. So he was started on steroids with methotrexate. And 5 months later, he is doing extremely well with no reactivations and only on methotrexate. So this is probably a presumed sarcoid, we do not know, but he is doing very well with immune suppression. Contrary to what we see in adults, children pose a diagnostic as well as therapeutic challenge. And this is highlighted by the next case. So this is a 12-year-old Sri Lankan male who had a history since 2013, extensively investigated in Singapore and in India. And when he came to me, he was on MMF and oral cyclosporin maximum dosages. So when I reviewed his records, it was very similar to what I was seeing. So it was otherwise a quiet eye clinically, but fluorescein angiography showed extensive leakages. And this was quite similar when I repeated it a year later as well. So when I looked at 4 years, he was maintaining 6.9 vision with the same amount of leakage. And the only thing we could offer him was biologic in the form of adalimumab, which he refused. So we continued him on the current medications which he was on and continued to follow him up frequently. At that point of time, we stumbled on this article, which was vascular leakages in fluorescein angiograph, which showed that diffuse leakages over a period of time can result in poor visual acuity. So when we saw our next case, which was a 13-year-old boy who had a history since 4 years, extensively treated and investigated, and he had failed almost many drugs. And when he came to me, he was on Deflucort, azathioprine, and cyclosporin, and his vision in the right eye was 624. So right eye had a cystoid macular edema. Again, everything else was non-contributory. But when you look at his eye, it was otherwise a quiet eye with a very occasional vitreous cells, but he had these cystoid changes in the macula in the right eye. So when we did a fluorescein angiography, we were horrified to see the extensive amount of leakages with optic nerve head leakage even in the left eye. So at this point of time, we thought, let's try tocilizumab. And we didn't know much about this drug or the dosage, but we took the dose which we normally use for Still's disease and gave him every 2 weeks. To our astonishment, this was what we saw, extensive improvement in the leakage. And this was in March 2019, right eye and left eye. And in July, he was doing extremely well. So he received tocilizumab for at least 2 years. And then we stopped it. And currently he is only on azathioprine once a day dosage. And he's doing extremely well with minimal peripheral leakages. So this gave us a big boost to our confidence in treating these patients with intermediate uveitis. And we thought we had achieved everything until we stumbled upon this case, which was a 10-year-old girl with history of pars planitis since 4 years. Labs were not contributing much. And she was already on methotrexate and oral cyclosporin for 4 years. Parents were already frustrated. And she was also receiving adalimumab bi-monthly since 2.5 years. What was interesting was the inflammation was only in one eye, and her best corrected visual acuity was 6.6 in both eyes. So this was a fluoresceint angiography picture. In spite of all this, she had extensive leakage. We did a laser photocoagulation, but did not help much. And we were boosted by the previous case. So we thought, let's try tocilizumab. Unfortunately, what we did is by then we had already had extensive literature evidence and which had said that the maximum dose was 8 milligrams once a month, which was in contrast to what we had given in our previous case. And so we gave her 8 mg per kg body weight once a month. And initially we thought she was doing well until 6 months down the line, when I repeated the fluoresceint angiogram, I was horrified to see that the leakage was still present. And in fact, it had gone up a little more. Now, at this point of time, we were led to believe, are we undertreating these patients? Is it a suboptimal dosage we are giving? Or is the drug not working? We still do not know. At this point of time, we have enough evidence to say that 8 milligram per kg body weight per monthly dose is what is usually required. But this is in total contrast to the patient which we treated earlier, who received much higher doses, much frequent intervals. But that patient had history of decreased blood counts over a period of time. Now, considering this in the circumstances which we are in right now, pandemic times, increased hospitalization if you are looking at bi-weekly doses, and now the cost of tocilizumab has also gone up, and the parents are extremely frustrated. We've tried almost everything, but nothing is working. And at this point of time, it leaves us thinking again, see, this is a unilateral uveitis. Patient has a 6.6 vision. There is no cystoid macular edema. Is it worth putting these patients through this extensive amount of biologics? It's something which we are still left pondering. So at the end of the day, though we think we have achieved a lot in recent years, we still land up with patients and we still start thinking whether we are still on the right track. So to conclude, adult versus pediatric intermediate uveitis, again, this is a big challenge. Adult patients usually do well, unlike our pediatric counterparts. Definitely, fluoresceint angiography, we are seeing this retinal vascular leakages, and which has also left us with a dilemma. Do we treat them or shouldn't we treat them, especially when the vision is good? However, we do know that biologics have played a very important role in patients with refractory cystoid macular edema. So intermediate uveitis still, to me, remains a big enigma, and only time will tell if we can really get better with time. I thank you all for a patient hearing.